Welcome back, Flyers Nitty Gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Yariv, Wolok, my partner in crime, Vasili Gianarakos. Vasili, welcome back for another episode, buddy. How you doing?
Doing well, Yariv. Middle of the week here, so that's awesome. Just in terms of the fact we're almost at the weekend,
Yep.
and we got some Flyers hockey coming up tonight against the Panthers. So we're gonna preview that for you all. It's gonna be a fun game, and some more hockey on the weekend against Carolina. So we're in for a good weekend of hockey ahead. But have you been, buddy?
Doing well, doing well. You threw me off with tonight because then I realized, oh yeah, people are going to be listening to it tomorrow, and for them it'll be tonight. I was like, oh, that's clever, because I never do that. But yeah, I'm doing well, dude. We've both been insanely busy, so we had to push this back a day. In case people who listen don't notice, we try to record like around Flyers games and early in the week. If we record end of the week, it's for a reason. But you see, we always try to put an episode out. And quite frankly, I'm not on Twitter enough to warn people ahead of time. So just know by this that's kind of what's happening. All right. We got good stuff to talk about because it's been a very interesting beginning of the season. And we were rambling a little bit beforehand, Vasily, but let's just get into the most recent news, I guess, or not recent news, but the most recent event. Flyers lost 3-0 to the Sharks. They're now 4-2 on the season. But so I'm just gonna let you go. You haven't said anything yet, and I've talked a lot, so I'll let you start off. Thoughts? Flyers are now 4-2, lose 3-0.
I mean, being 4-2, I think if you would have told me at the beginning of the season, like the Flyers are gonna be 4-2 after 6 games with playing, Tampa Bay and Florida to start off, I would have taken it. If you would have told me that, some of the losses would have came against the Sharks, I probably wouldn't have believed that. I probably would have thought one of the 4 wins would have came against San Jose. That kind of plays into what we have outlined here, just in the outline of kind of our episode, is that this was a trap game. You're ending a road trip off, big win against Nashville, and then you're coming back in, landing in Philly at about 3:30 a.m. To face a Sharks team that played an afternoon game the Saturday beforehand and was waiting for you. They were probably done the game around 5 o'clock on the Saturday, so they've been waiting a full 24 hours for you. So I think that was just a trap game for them in general, right? You're coming back on a Sunday. Not to say that excuses the performance, but they just didn't have it. Like, they didn't have their legs. They didn't have a good game. I mean, we saw Tortorella kind of mention that. It's unfortunate, though, because, I mean, you would like to see them capitalize. But I think just after the couple of weeks that they had to start off, it's understandable. I mean, that they have a bit of a letdown against the Sharks after, some bigger wins against teams that are probably better than them. Some interesting things to key in on the game for me is, I mean, I actually liked how Sandstrom played. There's a couple of goals that were iffy, but like I thought he gave him a chance to win. When your goalie's letting in 2 goals, a game, and then they basically get the empty netter there, you can't really ask for much more. Your team has to score more than 2 goals for you to win a game. It's hockey. The most interesting stuff, obviously, is the Hayes Konechny benching. We're going to get all into that afterwards.
Yeah.
But other than that, I just think, I mean, for that San Jose game specifically, it's something they just got to try to put behind them quickly and move on, because they got a tough schedule coming up in the next couple of weeks, so you can't dwell on that one game. Look at the positives from the road trip, and try to start off, the rest of the week against Florida and Carolina a little bit better than that.
Yeah.
How about you, Yuri? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, well, just to touch on, the trap game, it's definitely a trap game. Like, I was even thinking about tweeting it out ahead of time. I was kind of, whatever. The reality is, very good teams, they win those trap games. That is what it is. You have to consider the situation of that game, and we'll get into the full details. But you have to look at the fact that this Flyers team was expected to come in and play that way by their head coach. That was first and foremost. That was the expectation, and they fell short of that expectation. And how Tortorella responded obviously has been very interesting. I actually agree with you. I think Sandstrom did play well. I think one of the goals, maybe I say he probably could have had. I think he's been good in every showing he's played for the Flyers. He's a very athletic goal. He's a little unwieldy at times, but he's a good goalie. I don't have concerns about him. In fact, I think goaltending has been a strong point of this team for the early start. They couldn't score. They didn't look good. They clearly looked different than the other games. Like they actually didn't even get blown out.
They looked tired. to be honest.
They did look tired, but I don't think that was like all of the problem. They just didn't seem to be on the same page in the same
Yeah.
way. Like, and I don't want to jump to the TK Hayes thing. We'll get into that in a minute. But, they just didn't look exactly the same. And good teams do win trap games. But we have to consider the fact that the Flyers, and I guess we can kind of roll into this element now. The Flyers were pretty shorthanded in this game. Obviously, we'll get into injuries, but just JVR obviously out pretty early in that one. And then TK and Hayes are benched. And you
So
look
you're
at
rolling with 9 guys, really.
you're rolling with 9 guys. You're already down in the game, and you're kind of overplaying guys to some degree. You're rolling all your lines, attacking, attacking, attacking. They actually did have a pretty good third period. They just didn't have the work. They didn't have like the type of bodies to score, at least on a regular night. I mean, they're already like at that time, you're already without JVR, who third on the team in points, leads you in power play points. You're without TK, who's your best point producer, but second on the team in points. One of your best goal scorers, playmakers, everything. Kevin Hayes, who leads your team in assists, one of the highest assist men in the league right now, leads the team in points. You're without them, and that doesn't include Couturier, Atkinson, who have no idea what's going on with him. Tippett, who's not in the game. Right, like you look at those bodies missing from a team that's was never slated to be one of the better teams in this league. 2-0 is actually not that bad.
No.
When you think about it, it's actually not that bad. But and let's get into this part, and I do want to have my thoughts on this specifically. So TK and Hayes got benched. I do agree, and I remember specifically, I do agree with Hayes. With Tortorella, I think they were awful in the second period. I thought both of them were awful. I thought that line was awful and got beat, and they were hurting their team. And
Yeah.
I think that Torts recognized that to some degree, but I don't think that that's the reason that they were benched. I think he was more upset. Look, Scott Lawton's the only guy with an A on this team. There are 2 other guys, definitely Kevin Hayes being one of them, who have been talked about publicly, and that's TK and Hayes, where he obviously sees them as drivers of this team. And he recognized that. And I think it's not just, hey, it's a message to everybody. I think everybody's right who said that. It's a message not to just them, but to everybody else on the team. I think all that makes sense. What I think it also is a message to them in the sense is like, hey, I am responsible for this team. And you two are not just responsible for yourselves anymore. You're responsible for them. Like, you don't have Couturier here. We don't have Cam Atkinson here. You have a bunch of guys who have not played in the NHL. They can't afford to have you be not on your game. And you weren't, and you let them down. So and you hurt them when you were out there. And I think that's the type of conversation that he'll have with them. And I don't think it's that serious where it's like, oh my God, the worst players ever. I think he's trying to get another level. And a way to do that is to be like, hey, I'm going to throw more responsibility on your shoulders. I'm going to do it because I know, like, there's no way that those guys on the bench weren't going like, oh man, I really hope he puts them out there because they want them to play too. You know what I mean? And it's just like, hey, and I think, and I do want to talk about the responses. And I think one guy had a better response than the other, at least publicly. I think it's not ironic that there's a long break after this game. I think Tortorella weighed all of that in his head. They said, we have a break anyway. I'm going to piss these guys off, but I'll send them off. They're going to have a day off anyway to go vent, talk to people, do whatever you got to do. But I think it was extremely necessary. And I think even if they are a great team, it is not important. I don't know if it matters to bench them, but it's important that they know that. You know what I'm saying? Like TK's younger. He might be like, well, I'm not the older guy here. So like, it's fine. And Hayes is like not the guy, or at least I don't think he is that type of personality. And I think Tortorella is trying to ignite them in them. I think TK will be much easier to ignite than Hayes.
Yeah, great way to sum it up. Yariv, I'll kind of jump off there. I
Yeah.
think it's just the easiest way to put it is don't look at the short term, look at the long term picture. And I think that's what Tortorella has in mind here because people are mentioning, well, oh, you're benching, your 2 best players when you're starting out on the third period on a power play. You could have came back in the game and maybe salvaged a point, done something like that. which is like totally possible. Certainly, a reality that they could have, right? If you play these guys, it only takes one shot. It's hockey. Once it's 2-1, you can easily get back in it. Things like that. They would have got that one goal there on the power play. But I think just as you were saying, it's more just about the long term view. And not just this game. And the break also does have something to do with it. And what it really is, I mean,
Yeah.
though it stems, yeah, sure, though it stems, from the game in essence, just because they're both -3, -2 respectively. Connecting on the second goal, just lost in the own zone, misses a huge coverage in the D zone. So that's obviously something that
Horrible.
Tortorella, yeah, that's something
He
Tortorella's not
played
going to
bad.
be. Yeah, that's something
Played
Tortorella's
bad.
not going to be a fan of, and he's going to want to point out because he doesn't want things like that to occur once again. So he's going to try and nip that in the butt. But the main thing,
Not
really,
to
and
not to cut you off there,
yeah,
but he was -3, just so people aren't aware of that.
yeah,
Go ahead,
yeah,
continue.
exactly. So, but the main thing really is just ensuring that you are setting an example basically for the rest of the team. That hey, look at these guys. Look at Kevin Hayes. He has 8 points in 6 games, over a point a game. Look at Travis Konechny. He has 6 points in 6 games, a point a game
Mhm.
player leading the team in goals. That doesn't matter to me. They're having a bad game. I expect them to play to a certain level. They're not reaching that level, so thus they sit on
And
the
they hurt their
bench.
team. That
Yeah,
has to be
exactly.
minus
They
three,
hurt their
minus
team.
two, respectively.
100%. And what it really is, it's saying to them that, and saying to the rest of the team, it's just an effect, a branch of that standard that Tortorella is trying to set, and it's that you as a player, he wants you to play to your best. So he evidently saw Kevin Hayes and Travis Konechny not playing their best because we saw what their best was in previous games so far this season, and it's a lot better than what it was
Yeah.
in that San Jose game. So Tortorella realizes that, and he says, I'm going to sit you down. I'm going to let you know that you're not playing your best and that I need you to play way better. And I think that you can play way better. And that's why I'm doing this. And then come back in the next game and show me what you have. And even he said, like, in the practice media availabilities, like, people were asking, like, how's the response been in practice, things like that. And he said we're past that now. Like we went through it, we went over what we needed to do. We didn't kind of divulge what went on in the room. We wanted to keep that private, which I also like because you're keeping things together, tight knit as a team. You don't want to get the media involved, and that's how things get kind of blown out of proportion, as we see in the past with the way Alain Vigneault handles certain things with players in the media. You want to be delicate there. So Tortorella's smart in that respect, but it's more just showing the other players like, hey, these are our two best players on offense and they're getting benched. So it's a wake up call to the rest of the team that if you're not playing up to your capability, Tortorella has no problem sitting you down and letting you,
Mhm.
watch a little bit and understand that, hey, I'm not benching you because of, not directly stemming because of like your bad play. That's obviously an effect as well, but it's because I know that you're not playing well and I know you can play better. And I want you to understand that so you can work towards, okay, how do I get that best me on the ice out there and do it consistently, right? So that's what I think the message really is
Well,
and what they're kind of trying to hammer in on.
well, the one thing I don't think people recognize when we talk about this stuff, it's a unique standard to have.
Yeah.
Like,
Most people don't expect the best out of themselves
well, we
on a regular
always
basis.
look,
So,
no, there's always bad games for players, right? Like, it's
yeah,
always going to happen.
of
But
course, no player's gonna play the best every game, right?
but this is a team that the expectations were lowered for them. Like, even think
Yeah,
about the way people talk about them. And I do want to, like, I was just joking around about this, like, prior where I was like saying people were like, every podcast I listen to, people are like reminding us that they're a bad team. Like, hey, don't get ahead of yourself. They're bad. We know they're
in
bad.
their minds, they don't
Don't
think that though.
it that, but that's the whole point.
Yeah,
Is that
exactly.
I talk about this all the time. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. It's sports. If you knew what was going to happen, you wouldn't watch. Tell me you knew the Phillies were going to the World Series this year. Somebody please tell me that. I would love
Yeah,
to hear from all of the public to tell me how great the Phillies were coming in this year, how everybody knew that this was going to happen, how
they
they knew
fired
that.
a coach. Everybody was losing it earlier in the year. So
Please, everybody tell me how they knew this was going to happen. It's like, I'm not saying that everything is unpredictable in sports and that some things you can't see happening, but majority of things you didn't know was going to happen. And in fact, the
yeah,
best analyzers of sports are ones that give you ranges for things, not definitives. So when people talk to you about definitives, this team will be bad. I don't know how helpful that statement is, right? A range, sure. You can set, like we said the other day, hey, this team is doing much better. This is still not a team built to win a Stanley Cup. Do not get ahead of yourself. Could they possibly do it? Of course it's possible, but look at the odds, look at the injuries. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't want to be unrealistic, but this team's culture can change for the better. And I think we're watching that. And let's get into the responses real quick. Both of them were kind of interviewed after the game. I did find that like Kevin Hayes just looked like he was not very happy with the decision of obviously.
Yeah, he looked pissed. He didn't look like he wanted to be interviewed after the game, quite frankly.
Well, and that's understandable. And actually, that's a really good point. And I think that needs to be taken into account. You have a camera in your face. Like I hate that shit personally. Like I don't mind this, but most of the drama stuff.
But imagine like hypothetically, you got to think about it from your perspective. Imagine like you had a day at work and then you had like got out of this shit interaction with your boss and somebody came in your face with a camera. Like, how do you feel about it?
That's exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, it's not going to be a good reaction. So like,
I would respond like Provorov.
Yeah. So I see Hayes' response. It doesn't really bother me like out in the media. No. And then Konechny, I mean, you know what? He's been benched before by Hackstall, by Alain Vigneault. He's kind of, not to say he's used to it, but I think he knows how to deal with it.
That's a good point. I think it's actually a pretty good point.
I think he knows how to deal with it, and I think a lot of it he knows usually stems from his defensive shortcomings. Like that missed coverage probably is the stem and the root cause of Konechny getting benched, most likely.
Like, yeah, probably. From like I know what you mean, but I don't think it's just like
Also, there's a message there too, but that's all ties together.
Look at the way it's funny because we kept talking about Kevin Hayes being captain, and again, if I'm looking at complete surface level, which I would not do this. This is just me judging this one moment, which is not how you judge things.
Konechny responded more like a captain than Hayes.
Correct.
But I mean, hey, Konechny was a captain at every level, captain and junior.
Hayes
has those leadership skills. Hayes too has them. Like I said, I just think the time where they caught him after the game like that. 100%.
Like, well, that's why I said do not judge these guys based off of somebody throwing a camera in their face and blah blah blah.
It was only a minute interview too, like a minute response. Like they kind of probably knew, like this guy doesn't really want to talk to us right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. But with TK's thing, I mean, like what I really liked about TK's portion is that he said exactly what he did wrong. Like to a T. I did this wrong, blah, blah, blah. I didn't play well. He goes, that's why he did it. He didn't go like...
That's the accountability.
Yeah, but he didn't go like, oh, it was like, that's the coach's decision to figure out. He's like, no, I deserve that.
I respect that, though, because that's like essentially what Tortorella is looking to build, right? He wants guys to be accountable for their own actions in the room. That's how you build a cohesive team together when a player doesn't need the coach to point it out for him.
Well, don't you think he told them up front?
Yeah, no, of course he did, right? But I mean, I think that's the whole thing that is looking to be brewed from this. That I mean, these are your best players getting benched. Take notice, rest of the locker room, that you're going to be held accountable for your mistakes, and you have to own up to those things, right? And that's how we're going to build a better culture.
Yes.
As the Flyers, as a cohesive.
And so let's talk about Tortorella. So let's not be too easy on Tortorella because we should at least talk about like what the expectations be from him. And I think you kind of did a good job saying that already. But look, if he's actually going to ask this of him, that means he has to be consistent with this as well. That means when they play really well, which he's shown, right? He had TK playing 23 minutes tonight.
Most he's ever played.
So you can't say the guy doesn't like to play you, right? TK can't go home and be like, oh, he's never going to play. He's like, no, he played me.
Well, what it is play a certain way. Play a certain way. Play up to your best. Play up to your capabilities. I know you can.
I'll play you all fucking day.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is, I think, is why we don't question it when we see it. You know what I mean? But it is. If Torts is going to do this type of stuff, you have to do it right. Like, I understand why it makes people nervous, but there is no reward without the risk. So I think if this team and these fan base really want a culture that is truly unique and that will weed out people who are not ready to fight for every inch, this is the way to do it, dude.
I agree, and I think
it's the way at least to start.
I think the record too plays into it a bit because they're 4-2. Starting out well.
It could have been fine. They could have been 5-1, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Rolling into a break.
That's what I'm saying.
I'd be pissed too. I am pissed, actually.
I think Tortorella, he's thinking that obviously that, we could have had that win against a team that we should beat. And then he's also thinking, you know what, I'm going to do this now because we have a break. It's going to stew with the team for a bit, and then we'll see how we respond on Thursday in Florida. And I'm interested to see how they do respond.
Well, think about it. Even we let them off the hook. Ah, well, they won four. They're already 4-1.
Hmm.
We let them off the fucking hook.
The coach isn't though,
That's the
and
point.
that's what you need, right? In this
That's the fucking
situation.
point. Yes.
Yeah.
Is that's what we've been waiting for.
Well, that's the accountability, and then I mean, just to kind of wrap, I think really that San Jose game, their structure was just lacking, and then it was the real turning point in the game for me too. Is just they have that Farabee goal, and then it gets turned offside. Then San Jose scores right after. It's like a 2-goal swing, but and then like the team just deflates after that and never gets it back. But that's when you want your
Well,
guys like a Hayes Konechny.
I don't think
That's
they
what you want.
deflated. I think they
Yeah,
deflated for that period.
yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
Oh,
they
okay.
came
Yeah.
back in the. That's what I'm saying. Like in the
Okay.
second, San Jose then took like the lead,
Okay. In
took
the
over,
second, yeah. For
and
sure.
then they push in the third and try to get it back, right? But just don't have the bodies
I
and can't
mean,
score.
look at the lines that they were throwing. Delorier was like out there every other shift, and
Yeah, and I think what Tortorella is looking for is like, you know what? Like we deflated a bit after that goal.
they play their butts
Um,
off in the
yeah,
third.
exactly. But I think he wanted a Hayes and Konechny after that goal that got disallowed to be like, you know what? No, we're still going to take it by the horns, and they never did, and they got benched the rest of the period. So that's how it kind of plays out.
I mean,
And
the team started flat too, though. Both
yeah,
teams.
yeah, exactly. I think that's the stem of the
Again,
back to back, right? But then
I think he
it
hates that
interesting.
shit, dude.
He does. Tortorella doesn't
Ugh.
like that,
A
and
no energy game.
the
Ugh.
thing is that, and one last thing to
Boring game.
point out is, um, Morgan Frost, man, like he had two breakaways in
Yeah,
the third
I
period,
thought he
and
had one there.
I thought he had one of them. He
Yeah.
had a really nice move, and I'm thinking to myself like, this guy's had like what, 4 breakaways in the last like 3 games and hasn't scored on any of them. Like if he can start to bury some of these opportunities, man, and get some confidence, like
He will.
he's
Yeah.
very close to like hitting that plateau, I think.
It's almost a shame that we like, I think about the Ron Hextall pace of bringing up rookies, and it's like, dude, he was so right. And people could be upset about that. He's so right. You think about all these guys that we're dealing with today, like
Yeah.
most of them in retrospect, you'd be like, man, we should just give him like another year.
Well, I mean, let's be real. The NHL is a hard league. If you're 18 years old and coming into the NHL, that means you're like a very special talent.
Yeah.
Most players can't do that. That's why the AHL is such a great league because it's great for players to develop in and kind of learn and mold certain parts of their games that aren't NHL ready. So when they get called up, they are ready.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, Hextall knew what he was talking about in certain aspects. There, like there is a benefit of rushing a prospect depending on what you're using that skill set for. But in certain situations, you got to let them develop
There's a
at a slower pace in the
there's,
NHL
there's a
or in the
benefit to the
AHL. I mean,
team. I don't think the player ever really benefits unless
I
I
feel
guess
like
they're
if it's
generational.
like I think if it's like a winning situation, like think about the Flyers like 2010 that went to the Cup where you have like a JVR coming in, like who's around 18, 19 and like on a winning team. I think on a winning
I
team,
think
it can help as long as they
okay.
get playing time.
I see what you're
You know what I
saying.
mean?
Like learn from a really great culture, learn the
Yeah.
professionalism from a team. Okay, I do see your point there. I still would say that it's probably better for the development to wait off. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I don't think that's. I think that's probably
Yeah.
80%
I'm
of the time.
usually I agree. I say usually it's like first round picks. Like if it's a high first round pick, maybe you
Yeah,
can get away with it. Like in those situations, like a JVR who was like a second overall, but even like a Giroux who was a first round pick still needed AHL time, and look how good he was. So
yeah, and
like
he was
that's
a
a perfect
monster by the end
example.
of the year. The end of the year,
Yeah,
he's fantastic. It's just
a little
like
bit of time in that league helps you learn like the
100%.
little switches between junior and pro because there's just a lot changes
Well,
between the levels.
what I
So
love about what Tortorella has been saying to people is like one, he said what I love is he said this is not a young man's game, which I love that I have to listen to media people repeat that shit over and over again. But then all of a sudden coach goes on TV once and goes, yeah, this is like a veteran man's sport. This is not really like a
mhm.
young man's game here. It's not. It's not. I've said it over and over again. It's not a young man's game. That is not a true statement. The only reason that more young people are in there because of money. So that's it. That there's a cap. There was less of a cap. There
Entry
was more
level
veterans.
contracts. Yeah.
Yeah, if you could have more contract, they'd have veterans. We'd have full young player teams. Like it's a level of professionalism. You hear them reference it all the time. Some guys come in with it, like Joel Farabee, who's clearly, let's be honest, Tortorella's favorite player on the team. You know what I mean? At least from a forward standpoint.
Yeah.
It's like
But
him.
that's also, I think, just that you NTDP man, like
That's
Farabee's
what I'm
out of that.
saying.
They just train guys to
So
be a pro
rare.
already. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you
Most junior programs out of the OHL, they're not the
I
same.
I totally agree, and yet I still think Joel Farabee is an exception to the rule.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do agree with that statement. I don't know. You just look at York and Caulfield and other guys who had like kind of more send down, like,
Yeah,
oh,
had to go
you
down.
were
Yeah,
literally Farabee never had that. The
like
only
a
reason
week. He had a week,
yeah,
literally,
he scored 3 goals in 3 games, and
and
literally
they're
the
like,
reason
okay,
they sent
too
him down
bad.
because of contract issues, more like because they had problems with space on the roster, and they're like, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
there's no point for him to play in the AHL. But so anyway, so I just think like what's been happening, I think it's very interesting. I hate that we lost. I actually was like thinking about it. I'm like, man, like I was okay with us losing because like you listen to everybody and like, oh, this team's gonna be bad. This team's gonna be bad. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean they don't have their injuries. The injuries are really the problem more than it is anything. Actually, let's get into them.
yeah.
Let's get into them right now. I'll just state them and I'll let you give your opinion on them. So JVR, obviously after this game, he left in the first period. He is out for supposedly a month. We'll see. Hopefully a little bit less,
Yeah,
but
he got surgery, or I think he's getting surgery Friday on a
yeah,
broken finger. So it was a weird kind of like thing. Like the basically like he went to block a puck, it kind of rode up on him, hit him right in the hands. It's gonna hurt anybody. It's a fucking very
what a
hard rubber
bummer.
puck. So that kind of sucks because he had 5 points. He was playing well, and like he's another injury to a veteran guy
Yeah,
when this team really doesn't have a lot of veteran
no.
guys right now. So it's gonna be up to the young guys
And that's
now. It's kind
why
of
Kevin
interesting.
Hayes and TK are even more important, right? And I think that's
Yeah,
kind of towards his point. So
you got to
JV,
lead. Yeah.
yeah, JVR out a month. Yeah. Atkinson, still status quo. We're all getting worried about that at this point. And Couturier is week to week. Still have day to day here, but he's still week to week
Yeah, he's week to week.
skating.
Skating once in a while.
We don't know. But the good news is, and we'll talk about this, I guess, upcoming game in a little bit, but Tippett is ready for the game on Thursday, and so is
As his wrist.
Ristolainen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're gonna be running 11 forward 7D. Tortorella
Did
confirmed
he
that.
say who they're sitting? I missed that. Of the forwards?
Of the forwards, I'm not too
No, he
sure.
didn't.
Oh no, actually, yeah, Lisinski's gonna sit. He has a family situation tomorrow, whatever that
Oh,
means.
I
I'm not
missed
even
that.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so Tortorella confirmed that it will be Risto and Tippett in. Lazinski will sit. So I'm assuming he was saying that like Sedlak's going to be the one that gets moved a lot, like between wing and center, because he can kind of play both. So
Yeah.
they're going to rely on him there. And let me go over. I guess I'll go over some of the lines because we did get a bit of a different look today.
Yeah.
So this is
That's a good idea.
credit to Charlie O'Connor on Twitter. He posted these lines out. So first line was Farabee, Hayes, Konechny. Then you had the second line as Cates, Lawton, Tippett. Then you had Sedlak, Frost, Allison, and Deloria, McEwen, and Sedlak as well. I was taking reps in there. And then the D pairs are going to kind of be as you would expect. It's going to be Provorov, D'Angelo, Sanheim, Ristolainen, Braun, Zamula, and then Sealer will rotate in. I'm assuming, or it might just be with the defenseman, whoever's really rolling and having a good game. To be honest with you, because I mean, it seems like Tortorella is the kind of guy that does that. Like I mean, that even with his lines, I think that Hayes line's like a first line. That second line is a second line with Lawton, Cates, and and
Tippett.
Tippett. Yeah, and then I think the third and fourth lines are very interchangeable for him based on like who's rolling that night. To be honest.
See, I don't agree with that. I know that people are saying that, but I think it's very clearly defined on like Frost is in no way like
No, but I mean,
a,
like, I think if, like, let's say Deloria and McEwen are killing it that game, like, he might give them more ice, hypothetically.
yeah, I could see that, but like I think Tortorella is very much understands that neither one of those guys are going to be scoring goals.
Oh,
Like
100%. It's
I
more energy. Yeah.
yeah, like it's more about like, oh, I just need them to muck and grind, where the third line is a scoring line. That's
Yeah,
why
definitely.
Sedlak is being added to the left wing. To
Yeah.
probably to support Frost a little bit better since we're out so many
And
bodies.
you know what? This is something Tortorella touched on in the press conference today is that, he said when he played for him in Columbus, he didn't really have much scoring touch, but in the KHL, he
Right.
did show a lot of that. And
Oh,
a lot of the Flyers
past couple of
scouts,
years, yeah.
yeah, over 40 points in the KHL, which is more of a defensive league. And a lot of the Flyer scouts said that like his skating is, and you can even see it, like he's fast out there. He looks like
Mm-hmm.
quick, and that's what you want. And you could argue the last couple of years the Flyers lacked some speed. So I think their team in general this year, just with the conditioning and some
Better
of the
than
pieces
Patrick
they've
Brown.
added, yeah, he's faster than Patrick Brown. Probably can contribute a lot more. So I like the pickup. And just to end off, I mean, kind of on the lineup, power play one's changed up a bit. They had Tippett on the left wall, so they're going to try to utilize his one
One
timer
time,
more, which I'm all for that. Hayes on the right side wall kind of do the same thing. TK in the bumper position, Lott in net front to kind of replace JVR, and D'Angelo up top at the point to facilitate. And then power play two, they kind of got the same thing where Frost is going to be on the one side, Farabee on the other side, and they're going to kind of have them play off each other and try to utilize one timers, and Allison in the bumper, Kate's at the
makes
net front,
sense.
Provorov at the point. I'm excited for Farabee Frost. I honestly, on the power play on the second unit, I wouldn't be surprised if they show something that's going to become the first unit, because you know what, man, Frost has skills that like you can really see him on the power play. If he starts, putting him up points there and contributing, I could see Tortorella really leaning on him as a power play contributor, and Farabee as well. I've always thought Farabee and Frost, as they kind of came in together, they're around the same age, always
Hmm.
had a bit of chemistry together. So I'm interested to see if that can develop more for them on the power play.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. I think having Cates around the net is brilliant. He's
It's smart, yeah.
fantastic at redirecting. Also really great at just winning battles along the boards. The bumper spot. Obviously, Allison. Maybe ideally you'd want like Coots there or something, but Allison's a pretty good
It's a nice
option.
shot. It's a nice shot.
Yeah, he's a good shooter and he's strong, so he can own the middle, which is a difficult place to play. And then I completely agree with the be very interesting to watch Farabee and Frost kind of play off each other. I expect a lot of cross ice passes between those two.
Yeah, some silky plays there.
And then you have
for sure.
Provorov, I guess, with the more stable point, which I'm like not even surprised we're
You
back
know
to
what though?
Provorov on the power play, by the way.
No, me neither, because he has a good shot and he is calm back there, and that's what you want. But
He's the
also
number one
too,
defenseman, dude.
yeah, but
Does everything.
also too, like it makes sense to have him on the power play unit instead of putting him on the first power play where D'Angelo is. It makes sense to have him on the second unit, in my opinion, just because he's with younger guys, so like
Well,
they could be more
totally.
mistake prone.
I mean,
So
we should not underplay D'Angelo's. I mean, it's very evident that this guy has a ton of skill. I mean, you watch
oh
the way
yeah,
he moves the puck, the way he just jukes and jives, the way he just creates all these crazy passes. The guy
I'd
is
argue.
very talented.
Yeah, for sure. I'd argue the last game against San Jose, like Provorov and him were trying to carry the team into it in the first period. They like were rushing up the ice or trying to make some plays, and the rest of the team just
Yeah.
didn't have it. But they looked like they were in it though.
Man, we haven't had an offensive defenseman this good since Shane Gostisbehere.
And look at him; he has 4 goals already this
He
season.
had 2 goals and 1 assist the other night. Both goals were absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, or nasty.
Oh, what a shitty defenseman he is. I had to listen to that here for 3 years.
Yeah.
And now that he's gone, notice how our defense got worse without him. Funny how the defense got, not now, but last year was worse
Yeah.
without him. Dude, this is why I cannot stand this shit. And no offense, there are people I like and respect that I heard say this, but I heard the way people talk about Shane Gosper. He can't play hockey. He's a burden, blah, blah, blah. Yada, 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 yada. I hear you. Okay. Somehow other coaches find ways to get goals out of this guy. Somehow other people are able to play. Somehow he's able to take down fucking Minnesota. What was it? Minnesota you beat with Johnny Gaudreau single-handedly with Union. This is a guy who's constantly like I want people to understand that there are roles in hockey and that this is what offensive defensemen do. Notice how nobody's talking about Eric Carlson anymore. Why? Because he found out he's not amazing at defense. He was never amazing at defense.
Yeah.
He was just good. He was pretty good at D. He was amazing at all.
But he's an offensive defenseman.
Yes.
That's what he's best at.
That's what they're doing.
Put the offensive
Good
guy with
job.
but think about it, like put the offensive guy with a defensive guy, or with a guy who's better in his own end. Like you put D'Angelo with a Provorov who's solid in his own end, that cleans up some of the mistakes, right? Like
If you put
you
D'Angelo
gotta,
with Nick Sealer, who's played well, how do you think that will work out?
it's not gonna be the greatest.
Not very good. You're going to put Nick
just-
Sealer in a bunch of positions that he can't handle.
Yeah. And
Even though he's played
on
well.
the team. He has played well. He's played well. I'll give him that in his role. I mean, that's what you want out of a
In
7,
his
right? A guy that
role.
can
Exactly.
a guy that can fill in a pinch for 5, 6, 7 games. But now that Ristolainen comes back, he's going to take a step back, most likely, right?
I will say it started off where I thought Sealer was the better of the bottom pairing defensemen, and as it's gone on, I think Zamula easily has
Zamula looks good, man.
improved. Yeah,
I like it.
every game
Yeah.
he's looked better. You heard the way that I don't know if you heard, but Torts was talking about him the other day, where he's like, yeah, he's got a lot of tools there, and he goes, he keeps getting
He
better.
does, yeah.
The guy with that
Well, the thing is, it's
size,
an
the ability to move the
adjustment.
puck.
It's an adjustment, man. To play defense in the NHL, it's a hard league, and defense is probably the hardest position. Um, much harder to play than forward. There's just so much responsibility. So,
Yeah.
as a young guy coming into the NHL for the first time, like there's an adjustment period there, and then you're also playing with Nick Sealer, who like not to shit on the guy, he's not like fucking Ivan Provorov. So like it can be tougher for a young guy to know that like, okay,
Well,
I got to be in good positions too, because there might be times where he might get caught. Hypothetically, we got to be honest, which has happened, and they went over that. And I just think with Zamula, as the season goes along and he gets more comfortable, you're going to see even more from him.
yeah, dude, I totally agree. And honestly, that's still the case with this team. I know a
Yeah.
lot of people, it's like, I know we have other topics and we're just like talking about injuries and whatnot, but like, I know people want to like jump to like, oh, it's exactly what I told you it was going to be.
But
See,
once
they
they start going to
lost.
get healthy here, man.
Well, that I'm worried will never happen at this point. But I will say that that I still expect this team to improve as the season goes on. Like he still
I
had barely
agree.
any time to work on this team, and people for
Yeah,
some
exactly. Work
reason,
on systems.
well, I noticed that people were talking about it like there isn't going to be a progress. Like oh,
Yeah.
like this, I love that they are who they are. He is who
Well,
he is.
it's a constant learning process. Like today, in the press conference with Tortorella, Jordan Hall pointed something out that I mean, like they were doing some sort of drill, and Tortorella literally just yelled them, "No, that's not the way to do it." And he asked, like, "What were you yelling no about?" And he said, "I won't
Yeah, well,
divulge
yeah,
that." But then he asked the follow up, like, "Did it progress as you pointed it out?" He said, "Yeah, we got way better." But I think that's a key into like what Tortorella is doing. This is on the fly. This is as it happens, right? Like he had a week and a half to work on systems. You think that's it? He's not going to keep adjusting things when he sees mistakes. Like they're going to practice. They're going to go over certain battle drills. They're going to go over certain structural drills. And when there's things he doesn't point or things he doesn't like, he's going to point them out and definitively say, "No, this isn't what I want. Do this, please, and let's see it progress." And then the players are going to have to digest what he's saying and see if they can put it into effect, right? But
yeah.
we slowly see that all kind of starting to get unpacked, and it's not a linear thing with Tortorella. Just like development with players aren't a linear thing. All of this is going to take time. It's all going to be a process. But yeah,
But yeah, and honestly, I think that's a perfect segue. What you just said. We were going to talk about the trade. I'll move that a little bit. Let's just talk about previewing tomorrow's game because
yeah,
let's talk about a response to this, right? Like the benching, the days off, the loss, the expectations of 4-2, and it's like it's so funny, like I love how like people are like Torch knows that they're bad. He's telling you they're going to be bad, yet they're losing a game 2-0, and he's like, "Fuck you guys!" They're up 4-1 in the series, and he's still like, "Not good enough." Yeah, he knows they're going to be bad. He's truly convinced that they're going to be awful, or he just doesn't want to publicly praise a team that's achieved nothing. They've
yeah.
achieved nothing. They don't even have captains. They've won 4 games out of 2, which, by the way, we got to talk about Carter Hart in a minute here, and we can talk about that in the preview. We got to talk about him because I fucking love Carter Hart. But obviously, we're in for a show. I'm curious to see what is your gut instinct heading into. We can talk about both teams, Florida and then Carolina. I don't think the games get tougher in the East than that. Like you're not going to have a tough. You will have maybe other tough opponents. Right now, the East is dominant. Last I
Oh
checked.
yeah, yeah.
And these are hands down 2 of the best teams on paper for sure. And Carolina is explosive even right out the gate. What are you thinking about? How do you think the Flyers? Let's just talk about Florida for a minute first. How do you think the Flyers show up against Florida?
I think it's going to be a test just because obviously Florida's a good team. I mean, they're still missing some pieces on the back end, so that helps the Flyers out, even though the Flyers are missing crucial pieces too. So it's an even up in a sense. I mean, you're missing your number one defenseman in Ekblad. We're missing our number one center in Couturier, so it washes. So that's a good thing, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the response, like from Hayes and Konechny, I expect a really good response. I honestly expect to see, especially to Konechny, I'm kind of more interested on Hayes, obviously. But for Konechny, I mean, we've seen him bounce back after benchings before, and he usually plays pretty good games just in the past with Hackstall Vino. So, like, I don't expect anything less. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a goal or an apple or something along those lines, or looks like one of the best players, gets a lot of ice time, things like that. He needs to be a difference maker because, let's be quite frank, the Flyers have a lot of injuries. They have a lot of young guys. If he's not stepping up on a nightly basis, I mean, who else is going to do it? So they're looking for him to do that. I think he will. Same thing with Hayes. Like I think he's the number one center. He's, when your number one center is going, your team's going, and that's what they need right now. They need their number one center to get going. And not to say that he wasn't with 8 points in 6 games, but obviously the last game he was lacking as to what Tortorella wanted, and he could play better, which I agree with him. I think he could have played better than he did, and we're hopefully going to see that. So I think they're going to come out with a strong first period since they're at home as well. So they're going to be fired up in the first. But Florida's going to be fired up too. So I think they got to really watch out because they're going to try to match their intensity level right off the bat. They just came off a bad loss to Chicago, which was a 4-2 loss for them. And trust me, after you're losing to a team like Chicago, who's supposed to be dubbed as like a bottom 5 team in the league.
They're 4-2 this year also.
Therefore, I know, which is crazy, but they're actually actively trying to tank, like, which is kind of fucking hilarious. If you look at it, you actively try to tank, but it doesn't actually go that way. I mean, still early, but still. They're 4-2, but you can,
It's like the movie Major League Baseball.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
They're trying to lose, but somehow win. But you can be damned that Florida is not taking that loss well to a team they probably think and know that they should beat. So they're probably looking at this Flyers game like it's a must win for them. So the Flyers are gonna have to be ready there. And I mean, Carter Hart, we're going to kind of touch on him a little bit. I think he's going to be a big factor in the game. I think he'll be a big factor in both games. I mean, to be quite frank, if the Flyers want to win these games against teams that probably have better on paper rosters than them, he's going to have to be really good and continue his play that has been going on for his first 4 starts. So what's your thoughts on Florida?
He's the one element of this team that you could say the Flyers potentially could outmatch any team in the NHL.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, goaltending is probably the most important part of the game, technically.
He's capable of outplaying any goaltender in the league, including Shesterkin and Vasilevsky. I just said it. Correct. I don't care if people disagree with that. He has the ability to outperform them.
Technically did outperform Vasilevsky in that game against Tampa earlier. I mean, it's only one game.
Yeah. But I'm not saying he will be better than them for longer. He hasn't proven that. In fact, the team in front of him has not been very good.
He'll have to prove it. Yeah.
So he can't prove it because you look at Vasilevsky's team, they're fantastic, and he's a fantastic goaltender. It's a great compliment. Same thing with the New York, right? Potentially generational level goaltender in Shesterkin. I'm not an asshole. That guy destroyed it last year. Team's pretty good in front of him. They played well in front of him too. Played around their goalie. So hopefully the Flyers aren't even playing incredible and Carter Hart. They're just playing around him. They're just giving him the ability to see the puck. There's, I think Jason Martinez pointed out, I don't think there's been a backdoor goal yet. And there was like 3 a game. It felt like
100 a fucking game last season.
So again, these are
the structure helps.
Differences. I do think Florida's going to be really tough, and I think Carolina's going to be even tougher. I think Carolina is where we wish the Flyers were. This is what I was talking about with Brendan Moore. Is like you're not like he is like a Tortorella like guy where he's demanding that type of stuff. And
but it took years. It took years for them to get to that point with Brendan. That's something you got to know, right?
Yeah, it's a great point too. And they didn't even have a great roster at first too at all. Like they
just started building the culture, then building the roster around.
They had a worse roster than us.
Yeah, you got some young guys in like an Aho, and then start building that culture up.
Yeah, they didn't have a Sean Couturier. I don't think they even had a back. I think was it Freddie Anderson was the goalie.
Freddie Anderson was the goalie. When he first started, it might have been Ward just finishing up, maybe at the end. But I mean, then they had like what was it? Mrazek for a little. Mrazek for a little bit, then went to Anderson.
Yeah,
Mrazek was even good behind Carolina, and he's not the greatest goalie. So that just shows structure matters for a goalie.
I mean, that's why they were able to walk away from players. Why do you think? Yeah. I mean, a lot of it probably had to do with Brendan Moore being like, yeah, he's pretty good, but you can give me another guy.
I'll get him to be good too.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean,
that's what you want from a coach, really.
Guys, we're watching it. Like you're not watching a more talent. You're watching a team with less talent than they finished with last year because of the injuries. Like you look at just look at the bodies you had out there. Like you're not full lineup here, and they're still outperforming. Just the eye test. You don't need I know people are like, oh, they're still getting killed. Like I guess they had a bad first period against Florida.
I have an
I
interesting
mean,
point on
if
that
they
after
played
this
poorly, then Tortorella
topic.
would have told you.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, for stuff like this, like it's too hard to really predict. Like, you know what I mean? Just in terms, like,
I don't
you
even
gotta
try to
really,
predict.
we gotta wait and see. Obviously, like, firstly for these two games, I mean, I expect a win and a loss. To be honest, I think they'll beat
Yeah,
Florida.
I think that
I
sounds
think
about
they'll
right.
probably take a loss against Carolina. That's my thoughts. They might, I mean, do better. They might do worse. But it's like
They could
we're
lose
always saying,
both. Eh,
we gotta wait and see, right?
would it be that crazy to watch them lose both games,
No,
being down how many men they are though? The
no. But
defense is healthy. That's important.
my I just want to my thing to focus on is even if they do lose, I want to just see how the team plays.
Had to
So
knock on wood for
if
that.
if they play well and lose, I have no issue. If they show effort, if they're playing to their structure, playing intense, but they're in the games, I have no problem with it.
Yeah,
I just don't like the blowouts like from last season where it just looks like they're out of it. You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean,
Which we haven't seen yet. So,
last game was a remnant of last year.
but yeah, but you got to
The
factor in
beginning
though,
of it,
like it was boring, but you got to factor in they were
it
still
was
technically in the
boring.
game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it was boring. It was
yeah,
really fucking boring. And then they got severe, and then they had a goal disallowed because
yeah.
they were bad with offsides. Then they gave up a goal immediately and didn't respond.
Yeah.
That's
So
like
that's all the check marks from last year.
that's what I'm saying. And then this is what I'm saying. That's why I actually thought that Tortorella's reaction was quite appropriate because he's like, oh, bad habits showing again. Let's nip this in the bud.
It's smart though
Oh,
because
why? Because it's back to back. So you guys want to give yourself
you
excuses
don't want to let it
why you
spiral
could
though.
lose.
Yeah.
Great teams expect to win every fucking game. And you
Yeah.
can see our attitude towards this team is not that they win every game. If they
No,
were
no.
a good team, like if you go back to when the Flyers were, what was it 2017? It seems like years ago, 18, 19, when they
Yeah.
went to
Yeah.
the playoffs. Every game that they played, I expected them to win. I remember they just kept winning.
Yeah.
Remember they were just winning back to backs. I'm like, I expect them to win the next one too. Like, I think
I'm pretty
we're
sure they
going
went
to
to the
win.
COVID, like the initial COVID pause on like an 8 game win streak. Or they just like
And
finished,
they
like they just
just had
finished
another
up.
winning streak before that, I think.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah. It's crazy.
dominant. So again, that's just my whole point
He's
about
setting the
saying
standard, right? He just wants to make sure that, like, hey, like we can be better than this, and we're going to be.
we could have
And that's
stolen. We
yeah,
lost 2 points from San Jose.
yeah, and that's like I said,
But at
that's
least got
Tortorella.
one.
Or like you said, I mean, that's Tortorella nipping it in the bud, right? Like he knows the team after certain negative situations they unravel. He
Yeah.
kind of saw that happen. He's like, no, that's not happening under my
It,
watch. So
yeah,
you know,
exactly. And I fucking love it. Like I don't think it'll be an issue with TK. I am a little worried about how Kevin Hayes reacted, but
yeah, we'll see. Do you want
give
to
him time.
get into Carter Hart next, and then we'll go into
Yeah, let's
where we expect them to be?
yeah, I mean we could talk
Okay.
about Carter Hart. We still gotta talk about the trade, but let's talk about the Carter Hart thing. Yeah, I mean I'll go first. I'll let you respond because you're the goalie. But um, dude, he is everything that I thought he is. I don't see a difference. I know people. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't see a difference between this year and last year. I see the guy that I saw in his peak. I'm seeing it again right now. What I'm seeing is that the team isn't playing like dog shit in front of him. I think he's still really young, and I think we're just seeing the beginning of what Carter Hart really is. And I think he will be in top goalie candidate every single year if this team is good. There's no reason that he can't be outside of injuries and the team being shitty. If the team is
Yeah.
average to good to great, he will always be in that conversation. He is exceptional, in my opinion. Truly
Hmm.
exceptional goalie. And I'll say it again. I said it 100 times. I still have not seen a more talented goalie in a Flyers uniform.
Oh, I'll
I
agree.
haven't.
Yeah, I'll agree.
And
Just in terms
and
of raw natural talent, just the skills and positioning as a goaltender, it's crazy.
yeah, he's our most
Um,
talented player.
oh yeah, and
It is what it is.
there's elite potential there, and
I
you know
think
when you
there's
have an elite,
franchise
yeah,
potential.
100%. When you
I
have a
mean,
franchise goalie, elite goalie like that goes a
what
long way for
I
a
guess it's
team.
tough to say. What is a franchise goalie really like? Is
It's
that
like a Lundqvist, Carey Price, like that level.
yeah, okay. I still think he has potential to hit that level. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree. Like it's crazy because like I used to love watching Carey Price. Obviously, even to this day. I mean, obviously all the injury troubles
Yeah.
and personal stuff you haven't been able to see him, but he's so reminiscent of a young Price to me. Just like in
Yeah.
his
Oh
movements,
yeah.
he's very efficient, very
Is that
calm,
a is
very
that a
cool, very collected.
Canadian style of
Thing.
goaltending? I feel like there is kind of, and maybe you're a goaltender. I feel like goaltenders have a certain style. Maybe it's more of a North American style
Yeah,
Especially like
I wouldn't attribute it just to Canadian, but like just in terms of like because for people that don't know, like I played goalie in hockey like growing up and like played a decently high level like
yeah,
up to like AAA. So that's like right before juniors, I guess. But pretty much when you have your goalie coach and you're working with them, they're trying to work on efficiency. Like you want to be making fluid movements, not movements that are going to make you be doing like extra things that cause you to lose like efficiency or positioning in your butterfly. So like it's something they try to teach, but I'm assuming they probably do the same shit in the States as well. Like if it's a good
yeah.
goalie coach, so it might be a more North American. I know like the Russian goalies are a little bit different in that
They
they're
got the
more
fast fucking legs. What are they like
yeah
mutating
yeah
them or
they're more relying on some of the athleticism and down low work.
it's
But
working though?
yeah,
They're the
literally
best
yeah,
goalies in the league. I
it's
mean,
smart. Whatever's going on, it used to be Canada that most of the goalie coaches tried to replicate. Now it's looking like it's going to Russia just with like some of the tendencies. So I think the next
mm,
batch is going to be all like very strong butterfly things like that.
yeah.
But for Carter Hart, man, we'll just go. So here's the top five in the league right now in save percentage. Number one is Craig Anderson, 970. That's kind of fucking
He's
crazy.
he
He's like
like
42 years
42.
old. Yeah, he's like 42.
Again,
Number number
Buffalo's playing
two,
really well.
number two, Jake Ottinger, 953 save percentage. Number three, Carter Hart,
Dallas playing
940.
well.
Yeah, Carter Hart's number three, 949. Then you have Stuart Skinner, who's a backup in Edmonton, 944. He's only played one game, so okay.
Okay.
And then Binnington's at a 940 at number five. So that's some good company. He's with Ottinger and Binnington there. So Hart overall 949 save percentage through four,
I think only
175 goals
only
against
two of those
average.
guys will be at the top of that list, and
Oh,
it'll be
most
hard and Ottinger.
Ottinger and maybe Binnington. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Bennington, if his team continues to play as well as they
yeah.
do.
And then I mean, like just great stats to start. And then even another
Can we talk
stat
about
here.
Buffalo for one
Yeah,
second? I
sure. Go ahead.
just on that comment that you made about Buffalo, and or at least that I made. Look at Buffalo today. Look at how people thought about them 2 years ago. How they had no talent. There was nobody there.
Hmm.
There was nothing there. Tage Thompson wasn't that good of a player. Yada yada yada. Skinner's done. They don't have anything there. And Rasmus Dahlin, obviously, because he was 20 some years old, he obviously is not going to be a franchise defenseman because it didn't happen overnight. And now,
Yeah.
sorry, just wanted to point
Look
that
at
out.
what's happening.
Who want to say, again, we all made fun of Buffalo a few years ago.
They
I
have
get it.
pieces, right? It's not linear. They got a lot of young guys. If they develop at the right pace, they're going to be good.
It fixed their
Um,
culture.
Pretty much, yeah. But it's interesting just to jump back to Hart that like I mean he came in so young, man. You got to factor in like most goalies really don't start becoming stars till 25. He's not even 24 yet. He's
I know
23 years old. So like he for me like I personally think
he's
this is going to
younger
be
than
his
Sandstrom.
yeah I think this is going to be his breakout season. That might be a bit of a bold prediction, but I
No, that
think
makes sense. Under Torts, that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, and I just
He
think
can
like
play D.
stats wise, everything like you're going to see a much better season from him in those respects, just based like to the relative of like the best goalies in the league, just because he has a team around him that's actually structured and focused on D. And then a point I kind of put in the outline is does Tortorella's structure and his system like foster a goalie's development and them becoming like the best they can be. And not to say that like it's 100% certain, but like look at under Tortorella. I mean, Habby Bulin, all the way back in Tampa Bay, great goaltender. Henrik Lundqvist in fucking New York, great goaltender. I mean, obviously Luongo was already a star before he got to Vancouver, so whatever, we can't give that torts. But Columbus, Bobrovsky was good in Philly, but he wasn't really a star yet. And then he goes to Columbus, and Torts kind of makes him into that. He wins the Vezina for the first time under Torts. Then Elvis Merzlikins comes out of nowhere under Torts as well. And I don't think
He
it's a
won two
coincidence.
Vezinas under Torts.
Yeah, Bobrovsky. Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence that all these goals are having success under a coach that is focused on
Stresses
defensive
Team
structure.
D.
Yeah, stresses Team D, stretches a good defensive structure, but most importantly, stresses five guys supporting each other on the ice. Because if you're not playing defense in your zone, the new NHL is a 5-man unit. You're not going to be successful. It's too quick, and there's too many little plays that happen where you need your forwards to be in good position so the D have outlets and things to move the puck along the boards to be able to clear the zone. And you sorry before I let you in,
No, go ahead.
literally a key thing that I've noticed so far is the Flyers exiting the zone. Like it's still not perfect. There's a couple times where you see them like
Yeah.
try to clear it
Oh
and
yeah.
it's a failed clear and they get hemmed in. but it's a lot improved as compared to last season, where there's a lot more zone exits that they're trying to actually do get out. Whereas last season it was like every single zone exit, it's like a three attempt try before it gets out.
Oh
Versus
my
this year
god,
they're having more success. It's
last
going
year
to
was
get a lot. It's going to get a lot better, I would
last
say.
year was such a
And
nightmare.
that helps Hart, man. When you're a goalie and your team's constantly pinned in and pinned in and pinned in 3 times in a row after they're trying to clear it, like there's a straw that breaks the camel's back. You can only hold them off for so long, and Hart's going to benefit from it. And I think he's going
Yeah,
to have a really great season. 4-0 start. You can't ask for much more.
yeah. No, I think he's underestimated into how talented he is. Everybody used to say
And
about Berdor and all these guys.
best junior goalie of all time in terms of the stats, just the
Yeah,
winning,
the
how many
winning pedigree
wins.
and all.
Yeah, fuck
Yeah,
man.
I fucking love that. I still can't believe we have him, and that's the biggest reason why I'm against the rebuild. Like we finally got a star goalie. I was like,
He
we
might not let you
never
rebuild.
had
Like
one.
I'm just looking at I just remember some of those Rangers teams, man. Like in the late 2010s, like 2008 to 2011, like when Tortorella first started coaching them. I remember watching them and obviously I hated the fucking Rangers because they're playing the Flyers and Mike Richards and that was my team. So I'm like, fuck the Rangers. But I remember watching those games and be like, how is this team even winning? It's just all Lundqvist. And not to say that that's what Hart's going to be for us, but he, in my opinion, has a talent where the team can severely underperform and he can get them and hold them in games where they find ways to win where you would think, okay,
Oh,
they don't have it, but they're still going to win
dude, it
because of
makes
Hart.
me. That's why it kills me that we don't have Couturier so much. It's
Yeah,
like
man.
actually, so shout out to Jason Martinez. He had an awesome interview with Rocky Thompson. Awesome interview. I
Mm-hmm.
so enjoyed that interview. And I liked how Rocky was talking about the center position, how he thinks is the most difficult position in hockey behind goaltending. He thinks is the most important position in hockey. And if you think about that, that's why you build down the middle because of the
Yeah.
impact of the position. And you look at how important Sean Couturier could be to this team. Like,
Hope he
oh
gets
my
back,
God,
man.
we're a
I really hope.
whole different team with him in here.
I agree, man.
And now without Cam Atkinson having any kind of date and then Coots no date, it's like
I
fuck
mean, I'm gonna be
me.
optimistic. I just for this team, you gotta hope by mid-November they're both kind of back, hopefully, or end of November at least. But
All right,
we'll
well,
see.
let's ask that question. Where do you think the Flyers will be at the 30 game mark?
That's a tough one. I mean, it's one I added to the outline, so
Yeah,
I should have a good answer. But
I don't have
um,
one.
I would say, I mean, it's still early to tell. I would say, obviously, there's a lot of encouragement for me just based on the structure, the way the team's supporting each other, the way the team's playing. I think their forecheck is going to progressively get better. Like you see elements of it where they're really relentless, then it kind of
Yeah,
stops. And I think that's just they don't always know and are understanding the times where to go all out and kind of pick their spots on pinches and rushes. So I think that'll improve as we go along. Personally, I think they're going to be a little better than 500. I don't want to put myself out on a limb or anything, but I mean, at 30 games, I think they're going to be around 17, 14 and 1 or 17, 13 and something
yeah,
around that area. I think they're
yeah.
going to be better, a little bit better than 500, and they're going to be keeping themselves in the conversation. Then you kind of get healthy, and you never know what can happen from that point.
The thing for me there is just health. I think if we
Yeah.
keep losing bodies, and it could happen,
Well, if it continues at this point,
I
where
think,
key guys are getting injured, then
yeah,
you're fucked. But
I think,
if they can stay healthy to the lineup they have now, at least, I think they can
yeah,
relatively have a
exactly.
chance.
If they have the injuries and whatnot, they'll eventually slow down.
There's just
You
no
know,
way around it. Yeah.
yeah, it's just you won't have the firepower to compete on a regular basis. Like you can put up a good effort and all that, but it's just not gonna happen. Well, you saw the Flyers without Kevin Hayes and TK.
Yeah.
It is much more difficult to score without these guys. And if bodies keep dropping, we're in Connor Bedard territory. If we're talking about serious injuries and Couturier is
Yeah.
not back, and it just is what it is. Like even if Frost improves and let's say he's even on a 50-point pace, but he's the number one guy, it's not a
Mm-hmm.
good it's not a
No,
good
no.
sign.
You need depth. You need depth. You
Yeah,
don't want Morgan Frost going up against teams' best defense pairings on a nightly basis at this point.
exactly. He's
That's
not
not a
he's
recipe
not
for
ready for that.
success, right?
Though he has
No.
looked a lot better and he looked good at the end of the last game. But
Yeah.
let's talk about this trade that happened today. Evan Barrett gets traded for Cooper Zek,
Mm-hmm.
which I'd be surprised if Flyers fans know who Cooper Zek is. defenseman. And Evan Barrett is a name that I actually am pretty familiar with, at least from like a name standpoint. I think he was a higher pedigree at one point. Penn State graduate, I think NCAA, pretty good
Yeah,
college hockey player.
NCAA.
Third
Yeah.
round, former third round
So
pick.
yeah, he's a third round pick. I don't know too much about him. But I mean, I'm gonna go off Alex Appleyard here because he's great with the prospects. So we'll give
Yep.
him a shout out. Great guy. So on Twitter, Appleyard said here that he really liked Barrett in his draft here. Thought he might become a good third liner. Has not really clicked for him since leaving the NCAA with Penn State, but he thinks the Flyers win the trade, as there could be a chance he's still a young guy that he goes into a bottom sixer. So I mean, just at a shot that hey, maybe the guy figures out another organization. Some guys need to change the scenery sometimes. He has the potential to be a bottom six guy for you. Why not take the chance? I mean, I don't think Cooper Zek had a chance really to be an impact guy or really be more than an AHLer. So might as well give
So yeah.
yourself yeah, might as well give yourself another lottery ticket in respects to like a potential bottom six guy. And if he develops for you, that's a good thing. So that's pretty much all we have there on the trade. One last random Carter Hart stat that I kind of missed on, which is crazy. Is expected goals is like a big metric that we go by for or saved goals above expected is a big metric that I
Yeah.
kind of look at for goalies. Carter Hart's 6.87 goals saved above expected in 4 games. So he's saving over 6 goals a game that like the metrics would expect him to allow. That's how fucking nasty he's been.
That's probably how bad the scoring chances have been. But yeah, no, he's been fantastic. The thing about Barrett though, in that the Cooper Zek Barrett trade is I think in that sense, I do think the Flyers are kind of thinking phantoms there. They do need some more like skill guys in the top
Yeah,
six that are not just like younger, though he is 23 years old. Like you said, he still has an upside, at least to some degree. But I do think overall the Flyers win that
time's running
trade.
out. Yeah,
Yeah,
a little bit.
if he turns it around, maybe he ends up being a call up for the Flyers. Like was said earlier, this is the guy who um Barrett was a guy who had very high pedigree as a third round pick. And I think a lot of people expected him to be an NHL player at some point. So
Yeah, it's
um
possible.
yeah.
And I think too, I think that's a good point to make that they want some more like just scorers and depth in the AHL because you never know like the way the injuries are unfolding. It's not looking the greatest, so who knows who's going to have to get called up? Like if you end up calling it up a Tyson Forster or another young guy, who's going to replace them in the Phantoms. I think the Phantoms want to be competitive this year, so he'll help in that respects.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think the Phantoms are looking a little bit better. At least they're winning some games.
Yeah, I think they have a winning record as well to start.
Yeah, Ronnie Adder had a 2 goal game the other night.
Yeah, it looked pretty good. People were saying he could have 5 goals from the way he was playing. He was
Yeah,
playing
right.
amazing.
Yeah,
So
so that's a guy who you could see a call up maybe coming for him in the near future.
yeah, definitely possible.
All right. Let's get into our last segment. Before we do, I'll just give a shout out to our sponsor, Gym Steaks. They're still not open. That's why I'm like not as excited about highlighting them. They're still temporarily closed, but we'll let you know when they reopen. But shout out to Gym Steaks nonetheless. Keep them in your hearts and minds. All right, let's get into our last segment where we go through the comments. And I will share my screen because I feel like I'm at work right now.
I know, right? It feels like I'm on a Microsoft Teams call. Like, hey
Right.
guys, let me share my screen for you.
Let me
Let's go
share my
over
screen, y'all. Let's go. Let's go over the details of the plan. All right.
it.
First comment here from Eric Wisniewski.
He's
Eric,
becoming a regular. Thanks.
yeah, a reg. I felt like the goalies should have not given up one of those goals. I felt like the team wasn't bad. It was exciting. Can't wait to see them grow.
I think it's about the Florida. Yeah.
Oh, this is the Florida Panthers. I think this is the wrong video. I pulled down the wrong one. We can still read that though.
Okay.
I had this open here. Eric, we'll comment on that one real quick. Yeah. I mean, I think we were saying. I think.
Sandstrom played well. A couple goals he would have probably liked back. Realistically.
Yeah. I think so too. I think.
But that one goal he let in was a hard shot though, man. Like if you're a goalie, the hardest shot for me personally, like when I was in net, the hardest shot to save and ask any goalie, either right between the glove and like your pad, which is where that was. So like it gets right in between the little 7 hole, or on the blocker side, right between the blocker and the pad. It gets right in between the 7 hole. It's hard, man, because there's just a little crevasse and you can't always catch it.
But
So
I mean, to be honest, does he look any worse than Jones? I mean,
no, yeah, I don't mind giving it to Sandstrom, and even if he gets hurt or something, Urson looks like he could pick it up, no doubt from him.
yeah,
So
yeah, he looks talented. All right, back to Eric again. You're on top of it, bro. Love to see the Flyers take both Florida teams to overtime, pick up 2 points. Obviously, this was before this happened.
yeah,
Almost happened. Wasn't
yeah,
too bad though. That would be a huge success. I would say it was a pretty good success. Wasn't too bad. They could have done worse. Second comment, because I always listen to this parts. Using power play specialist on the PK has been growing thing around the league. Yeah.
yeah. Because a good guy in the power play knows where the other power plays might be. So,
Is this the right episode? Am I looking at the wrong episode? Yeah,
uh,
I'm looking
no,
at the
we're
wrong
good.
episode. Didn't we read these last time?
No, this is with Sam, so that'd be the right one.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh my god.
we did
Wow.
two gritty. We did two gritty
Losing my
rants. Yeah,
losing my mind, dude.
that's
Everything's
okay. We're good.
going right back into to one mode. Oh, there's more here. A bit of a trend. They read opposing power plays well because they know what to
What?
look for and they create offense which wastes more time, some more than a simple clear. Yeah, good point. Adam Fox, Kel McCarr, Quinn Hughes, Mitch Marner for forwards. Bradshaw wants to add D'Angelo to that growing list, and I say go for it. Totally agree. Um, and I
Yeah,
think, quite frankly, it's cool to demand more of your skilled players to play
yeah,
defense.
I agree. And like those skilled guys that you see connecting, getting put on the power play. Derek's totally right in a sense that if you're a power play player, you play the power play, what you're trying to do on the power play, so then you can kind of counter that
I
and
mean,
think, well, okay, what are these guys going to do? That's what I would do on the power play, and use those anticipation skills.
when
So
we were the
smart.
best versions of the Flyers, at least in the modern era, our penalty killers were
Was great.
Richards,
Yeah,
Carter, Gagne, Giroux.
they're
I
all in
don't
the
hear
power
any.
play.
Yeah, it's like, yeah,
Usually, your best players play in all situations. That's just
that's
fun.
the idea. Yeah. Otherwise, they're probably not your best players. Scott Chambers, amazing win over Tampa. Speed, fitness kills at any level. No skill, no puck skating drills are paying. Oh, no puck skating drills are paying off. Give towards his props. He's making a team they believe in itself. Go Flyers. Totally agree. I think we've said that over and over again.
Yeah, and I think that's a really key thing that these past Flyers team, you could just tell the confidence wasn't there. Whereas this year, I think you see the confidence, and then in turn, when they go down or something bad happens, that resilience comes back out because they do actually believe in themselves and believe they can come back. Whereas previous teams didn't give a fuck or think that that was a possibility. So
Yeah. Yep. Totally agree. Thumbs up. Eric again, waiting to see Cam York get a shot this year.
yeah,
Uh,
he'll get one.
he will. I mean, honestly, I
There'll
don't.
be injuries. Let's be real.
Yes, and quite frankly, I'm enjoying that there aren't right now, and I still am waiting for him to take over in the AHL. It will happen.
Yeah.
People deny it, they question it, people freak out if it doesn't happen immediately. But um, again. Like, actually, I do remember last year at the beginning of the year, I said Zamula needed to put up numbers offensively to get his chance in the NHL. If you look at his numbers last
He
year,
did,
in the
yeah.
NHL, he definitely did. So Cam York, you're up next, brother. All right. Flyer Bob. Actually, did you want to say anything else there? Sorry.
No, no, we're good.
Okay. Flyer Bob, let's go Flyers will be happy with any points we can get at Florida go towards. Didn't
So
get
you're a
there.
happy man. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we got a Tampa, right?
Yeah,
But not
exactly.
not Florida itself. Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm sure we'll get more. Okay, Derek again. Okay. Have to say this otherwise. If you can put Cam York on this team, you're doing it because of the name. Oh, I don't know how I just did that. Probably because of my mouse and its magicness. Um,
I think he's
oh,
quoting you, Yariv, from this episode.
oh, uh, did I?
Yeah.
No, it sounds like a maybe it's for me.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't remember half the shit I say. No, I'm not. Stop putting words in my mouth. I'm putting Cam York on this team because I watched him play 30 NHL regular season games and he was fantastic. He was either the team's second best, or sometimes even best defenseman on any given night. And I don't mean I watch those games as they happen, but I did. But I watched many of them again for training camp. Cam York played on a 30-point pace in the NHL as a 20-year-old. Travis Sanheim has broken 30 points twice in the NHL career, one of which being this year. Von Provad, his best stretch of the season, playing primarily with Cam York. Did I think York carried Provorov? Hell no, but he was good enough as a 20-year-old. 20-year-old to hand off to
A
on
20-year-old
his
kid on his
yeah,
offhand. Yeah.
offhand. Ooh, sorry. To make Provorov comfortable and let him play his game. Did he play his abilities during camp? No, but he's still making the team. And has everything to do with his ability, not his name. So, Derek, totally agree with that in the sense that I had that same assessment because I agree with you. Last year, I think he was pretty good. Thought he played really well with Provorov. I think definitely in his second stint, he looked NHL ready. Honestly, I still kind of think he is, but I have
he didn't
to.
earn it in camp, man.
There's no denial he didn't earn it in camp. And kind of what
That's
I was
what
saying
Torch
earlier,
is looking for, man. Sorry to cut you off. Sure.
yeah, no. Like that, I'll let you talk in a second. It's not, it's like that. And also the addition, the fact that we want to see more out of York, and it's not going to hurt him to be in the AHL. It's just not
at his age. Yeah.
He's still not dominating that league. Go ahead.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, he's still so young, so there's obviously more that the team thinks that they can get out of him. I think that's the main thing is why they sent him down. They said, you probably can't play in the NHL. You probably can be serviceable for us. We don't just want you to be serviceable. We want you to be a top pair guy. We want you to dominate games. And we don't think that version of you can do that right now in the NHL. So we don't want you here. We want you to do that in the AHL. We want you to develop that skill set, then bring it up with you next time and show us why you deserve to stay. I think that's what it is. And I think we can't really, not to say that like the 30 NHL games from last season don't count or anything, because those are real NHL games and he played well in them. I just think that whole like sample size from Mike Yeo last season, like I don't think the team really takes a lot of that into account. And it just has to do with the fact that like it was a losing team. They weren't playing very well, even though York's, playing well on that team that bodes, for future success. But I think as soon as Tortorella came in, it's more of a clean slate. Show what you have. Whatever you did in the past doesn't matter. And unfortunately, he didn't do enough for Torts to keep him here.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think everything Vasili said is true. I think the other element, and I'll repeat something I said earlier, the roles on this team. I talked about this with Bill Meltzer as well. You look at Cam York, they don't want him playing maybe the second unit power play.
And maybe like 14 minutes a night.
Right.
He could be playing 25 in the A and getting full power play.
What you're referring to, those 30 NHL games, which not all of them were in this role, right? We waited for the injury, but there was a huge gap in that top pairing. There's nobody, like, that's his role. He's a top 4 defender at the very least. He'd be playing bottom pairing here. It's not a huge incentive to put him here when Zamula is maybe a top 4 guy.
My thoughts are this: like, if you see Provorov, knock on wood, Sanheim hypothetically get hurt, York's called up in about 2 seconds. You know what I mean?
Well, you don't have any. Well, I guess it depends. I would say it depends on who
severe it is.
Yeah. Well, like it's different than last year because D'Angelo was here, and D'Angelo's been lights out. And you look at the top 4 with Risto here, and you're like, okay, that top 4 is set. Braun is set, and there's one extra spot there that plays like 13 minutes a night. So it's like Roland Zamula, who had a better camp. And if Zamula wasn't playing right now, he'd be down with the Phantoms. Like if he was if it was even a chance that he's getting cut or benched, he's going back to the Phantoms.
Well, look at Adder. That's what they did with him, right?
Exactly.
He got caught. He went back. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that there was a chance that would happen to York. I think they're not really interested in doing that with him at all. I think, again, his role is to be a top 3 defender here when he's ready. Zamula's role doesn't have to be that. He could end up, maybe Zamula will end up being better than York. That possibility is always there. Like, it's not that, but again, the way they see it is Zamula is more bottom pairing to maybe top 3. You know what I mean? Where York is minimal top 4, number 1.
What it is I think they believe that a lot of Zamula's developing that needed to be done in the AHL has already been completed for him. Like, he did his time. He spent years down there, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Yeah, well, a lot more time. So that counts for something, right? Like, he spent a lot more time.
We know it helps.
You got to understand that most really good defensemen spend years in the AHL. Like, look at Duncan Keith. look at some of the best defensemen that play in this league right now, and a lot of them spent years in the AHL. So for
Travis
a defenseman that's young
Sanheim.
like that, I don't think it's a bad thing. Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing at all whatsoever. So
No,
I think York will bounce back.
but
We'll see him up quite soon. But
yeah,
thanks, Derek, for commenting, man. You're
yeah,
always checking stuff out, and we appreciate it, buddy.
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a good. I think it's a fair, very fair comment. And I think
100%.
he
Yeah.
was penciled into my lineup to start off the year, and I'm
He
like, oh
was
yeah,
too
why
for
wouldn't
me.
he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's more talented. There's no doubt about it. Zamula is a
Yeah.
talented guy. I think Zamula has
I think it's
relatively high
more of a
ceiling.
I think it's more of a thing of like, you know, talent's right, but maybe not the right time for him
I,
in the NHL
I
lineup at the point, right?
look, it's undeniable. If it was time for him, he would be dominating the AHL. He's not doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
He he's gonna figure it out. Again, we talked about Giroux not being on this team when he first got here. Like it took him what I think 19, 20 games into the season.
Mm-hmm. He'll
There
be
you go.
back. He'll be back.
Yeah, and that's a
Exactly.
forward. All right, cool. That's it for us on this one, Vasili. Anything you're working on? Anything you want to tell our audience about?
There will be an article paired with this coming out today as you listen. So go to flyersnittygritty.com, check that out, please. We really appreciate it. I'll also have another article at some point this weekend, most likely Sunday morning, I'm going to say. Probably just recapping the games from Florida, Carolina, giving my thoughts and just perspectives on like kind of what went on there. So thanks as always, everybody, for checking things out and continuously supporting us when you can. We really appreciate it, and you guys are the best.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Yeah, thank you everybody for listening. Really appreciate it. Again, like, subscribe, share the whole shebang. We're gonna keep doing these again. Shout out to the live event, which will be at the stadium November 12th. I'll keep bringing that up. We're gonna have drinks and food and stuff like that. And
Even
I don't
me
know.
on FaceTime.
Yeah, yeah. grab Vasili on FaceTime. I think we're just gonna go. We're gonna hang out for a couple hours. The first time we're ever doing anything like that, but it'd be cool to see people and just say hi and yeah, just appreciate everybody listening. So again, thank you everybody. Go Flyers. Keep listening to us for sure, and always stay gritty.